Hello, today I will show you how I made the blueprint for the suspension sounds for this vehicle template project from Unreal Engine. And well, on a previous video, I showed the Metasounds, which have a intensity and strength float inputs. There are two. This one, like the impacts, or this is softer, and the more squeak. And well, I will play for a moment. So you hear. Okay. Well, so what I was showing is that here I just recorded the values of the spring force, and which is the blue line. And well, what I wanted to do is to find the peaks, positive and negative peaks, to play sounds that those moments. And okay, so what I'm doing is playing the suspension meta sound on the positive peak and the squeaks on the negative peak. And well, I just made once this graphic to see the values of these numbers are the strength. I mean, is what is sent to the strength input from the meta sounds. And I will show you how I calculate it, because it's not the spring force. And well, once one frame after the peak, you find out, the function finds out that it was a peak and it's over, because now it's decreasing. So at that point it plays the sound like one frame after. Also on the negatives that are not here. Yeah. Okay, so all right. This is the function suspension, which is playing tick here. So what I will show you everything, but first I want to show that number that is sent to the meta sound. What it is the accumulated spring force change. Since it started increasing until it reached the peak, or decreasing until it reached the negative peak, divided by the time it took to increase or decrease. The accumulated time, you get this spring force change rate that is sent to the meta sound. Okay, so first I save the current time and the spring force, which comes from the vehicle component. I have here the reference, which is also used for other wheel sounds that I show on other videos, because this is the same blueprint. I mean, it's placed next to each wheel in the car here. So there's one for each wheel, and you get from the vehicle moment component, you get this value, the spring force, which is a big number with a lot of zeros. So I normalize it from -1 to 1 and set it there. And okay, so first I check if the spring force now it's same as the previous one, and if it is, I do nothing. And in the other cases, I divided, there are 4 situations, right? All this is to get the peaks, negative and positive. So there are 4 situations. It's that the spring force is increasing and also was increasing. If it is increasing and it was decreasing, so if it was decreasing and now it's increasing, that's a negative peak. So I'm also considering a negative peak is if the spring force is a negative value, because it could be a positive value and decreasing, but in those cases I'm not considering it as a peak. And then also, well, if it was decreasing and it's increasing, if it was increasing and now it's not increasing anymore, that's a positive peak if it's a positive spring force value. So well, here it's how I check it. So if the spring force is increasing, I check then if it was increasing. And well, if it is and it was increasing, I just update some variables like the accumulated spring force, which is, I add the delta spring force value to the accumulated one. Okay, which is the difference between the spring force and the previous spring force. And I said that it is increasing, and the same for the time. I save the time. This could have been done maybe in another way, simpler way, but well, here, this way I have all this information available. So if the spring force was decreasing but is increasing, if the previous value was negative, we know it was a negative peak, the previous frame, right? So well, first, since it was decreasing and now it's increasing, I set from, the delta spring force accumulated is reset. So it's just the current delta spring force. I don't have to add anything to this. Well, I also set the time. Also, it resets because it's a change after a peak. So I check if the previous spring force was negative. I consider it a negative peak, the previous one. So I calculate the spring force change rate. I called it. That is I divided the accumulated spring force by the time it took. So if it took less time, the impact will be harder and a harder sound. So because I am sending it to the strength input on the Metasound. Okay, so this plays the squeak sound, and here for the intensity, I am just checking because when I play the sound, I set the time when the sound was played. So if it plays again, and it played very few moments ago, it played another one, it will lower down the volume, right? If the difference between the current time and the last play sound is less than 2, it will give you for the level a value less than 1, so it will play lower. And then we have if the spring force is increasing, is decreasing, and was decreasing. like no peaks, still decreasing. I add the delta spring force to the current one, and also set the accumulated time and increase to false. And here it's when it was increasing, but now it's decreasing. So it's a possible positive peak if it's the previous spring force had a positive value. It is, so it will play a sound. So here again I calculate the spring force rate change, and for these sounds, just because I thought it sounded better, it will only play a sound if this value is greater or equal than 4. Of course, it's a matter of how are the sounds and what you want. So it plays the sound with the strength. Well, it sets the time, and well, also again for the intensity, we do this the same. Just that here I just put 0.8 for the like a threshold. After, if it's a greater amount of time, it will always be level will be 1. And I was going to show this. It's just playing the sound attached and setting the Metasound parameters. What else? And well, if it's not no, sorry, this is the second step. It saves the spring force accumulated. Also sets that it's decreasing, and the decrease time from like reset. And well, finally here, after all that, I set these variables, so we know which was the previous spring force, if it was increasing, and the time. And well, that's it. I hope it was clear. And well, this is just an idea. I think there are a lot of ways of doing this, and that the important is that I got these peaks. Then I could do anything else, like play the sounds on a different way or use the values for something else. Maybe I will keep exploring this with other sounds. And okay, thank you for watching. See you soon.